Friends, welcome to EduTap. Today we are going to discuss about a very useful thing, very important thing, that is banking and financial awareness. This is one of the most scoring thing in your exams, but I think this is neglected by most of the students because it consists of such basics that we tend to think that we will be able to handle that. So whether it's your RBI, SEBI, NABARD, SBI or other banking exams, there would always be some questions from your banking awareness or financial awareness, right? So what we are going to do is that at EduTab, we are going to start a series on YouTube in which we are going to cover banking and financial awareness through a lot of small lectures so that you enjoy watching them and at the same time you learn a lot out of them. So that is the objective of this series that we are going to start. This is just an introductory video for that series, right? In this video I will explain you what we are going to cover, what is the objective, right? And we shall start with the basics of banking in this video itself. So what are we waiting? Let's start with the action. Now, in case you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel till now, I will request you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon so that you keep on getting the regular updates as and when the videos are uploaded. Now, some questions that would be coming to your mind regarding this series is that which exam this series is suited for. Right. So that can be RBI, that can be SEBI, that can be NABARD, SBI, or even other banking exams like IBPS PO or IBPS clerk. Every year I have seen there are one or two questions from banking awareness either in the phase 1 of RBI, SEBI, NABARD or in the phase 2 of RBI or SEBI. Right. So this is very important in the sense that just by covering the basics, we can be sure of scoring these 1-2 marks in the exam, which at times can be very critical. Right. What we will be covering in this series, that I'll tell you on the next slide, that what we will be covering in this series, I'll tell you in detail all the topics that will be covered in this series, how it is going to be useful to you. As I told you, what you need to do is just watch these videos. These are short videos, not lengthy videos, and over a period of time, right, by the time this series gets completed, you will get a lot of knowledge about banking awareness and financial awareness on the basic things that you need to know, right? And while learning this, we will also discuss some facts that are very interesting that might not be asked in the exam, but certainly they would be something, a kind of eye opener for you, right? So what will be covered in this series? First, types of money and functions of money. Then we shall discuss about various types of banks in India, right? And the banking types. Then differentiated banks like payment banks, small finance banks. These are something which are really important for you to know. Type of bank accounts, right? All type of bank accounts, Loro, Voro, NRI, domestic, all type of bank accounts we shall be discussing here. IT sector lending. This is something, I mean, if you are aspiring for a career in the bank, this is something that should be at the top of your mind. Financial regulators in India, again, there is one question every year, and they will ask about the regulator of a particular area, so that will get cleared from here. Financial markets, money and capital markets, we shall discuss in brief here, and some of the interesting instruments shall be discussed here. NPAs in banking, which is always a hot topic, we shall try to discuss NPAs in banking in as much as detail we can. Types of ATMs and checks in the banking system, very interesting topic. Basel norms, risk management, right, is one of the topmost hot areas that is always in news. So Basel norms and type of risks in the banking would be discussed in this video. Financial derivatives, payment systems in India and its regulation. So NPCI and all those things would be covered here, which is again very important. Every year there are one or two questions from this area, right? So this is what we have planned to cover in this series. But I think as in when we come out with videos, we will also learn more that know what kind of things should we explain to you. So we will keep on adding some things if we find that this is something you must know. So this is not, I would say, is a very rigid schedule, but yes, we are being flexible. We will keep adding if we feel something needs to be added, or if you can recommend something, you can put down a comment below the video, and we shall surely take that into account. So first in this video, right, let's start with the basic functions of the bank. What is the basic function of the bank? Now this is a bank, right? Now what is the most basic function of the bank? Bank will take money from the depositors and it will pay certain interest, right? And it will further lend that money to the person who are in need of the money and will charge them certain rate of interest. Now this rate of interest which they will charge by lending the money would be greater than the interest that they would be paying to the depositors, right? So here it is denoted by dollars, that is $4 means that the amount of interest they are charging is say $4, though interest is always in percentage, right? And the amount of interest they are giving to depositors is $1. So here the unit of interest is denoted by dollar. So the difference would be $3. That is, the bank will keep this difference as its profit, right? So this is the basic function of the bank, though these days banks have diversified into various things like investment banking, selling mutual funds, whatnot, you name and whatnot the banks are doing. But this is the basic function of the bank. This is where the banking started, right? You take money from the depositors at X rate, you lend money to the needy people at Y rate, where Y would be greater than X, and this difference will make your profit. This is basically called net interest income. What are your interest revenues from the money that has been lent by you, and what are your interest expenses? That is the interest that you are paying on the deposit. Their difference is called net interest income, and this is a very important metrics for every bank, right? When profitability of the bank is being talked about, net interest income is a very important factor to be seen, that what is the net interest income, right? So this is the basic function of the bank. Please understand the logic of net interest income. This you would have already known, but net interest income, this is something that might be new to you. Net interest income is interest revenues minus interest expense. That is interest earned through revenue and interest expensed in form of interest given to the depositors. That difference is called net interest income. Now, what is the first bank in India? If I go to the history of banking in India, what is the first bank in India? The first bank in India was Bank of Hindustan, which was established in 1770. Right? Many of you might not be knowing it, so it's a good thing for you to know now that the first bank in India was Bank of Hindustan, which was established in 1770, but unfortunately it got liquidated in 1829. Right? So please remember, this can be asked. It is relevant for you for your various exams. The first bank in India was Bank of Hindustan. Now, if we try to go further into the history of the bank, so there were three presidency banks that came into existence. Bank of Bengal in 1809, right? So earlier it was Bank of Calcutta, right? And then it was renamed as Bank of Bengal in 1809. Bank of Bombay 1840 and Bank of Madras 1843. So these are the three presidency banks that used to exist earlier. Then later they were merged into Imperial Bank of India. So in 1921, these three were merged into Imperial Bank of India, which was a private entity. It was not a public bank, it was a private entity. And later in 1955, this Imperial Bank of India, which was a private entity, was nationalized and it was renamed as State Bank of India. Yes, our own State Bank of India, which we know today, right, on the recommendation of AD Gr committee. So you must remember which committee recommended nationalization of Imperial Bank of India. It was AD Gr committee, and in 1955 this Imperial Bank of India, which was created from the merger of these three presidency banks, this Imperial Bank of India was nationalized and renamed as State Bank of India, right? And after that, lot of mergers have been happening, lot of banks are being merged into State Bank of India. I'll not go into detail of that. Instead, to make it more interesting, what we are going to do is we are going to have some interesting facts about our banks, and I hope you will enjoy thinking about that. Do you know which is the oldest public sector bank in India? Oldest public sector bank in India. I know most of you would be thinking State Bank of India, but the answer is Allahabad Bank. This is the oldest public sector bank in India, right? Then first bank purely managed by Indians. It means the bank in which there was no shareholder, which was a foreign national or a foreign entity or a foreign corporate body. That is, it was purely managed by Indians. Which was that first bank which was purely managed by Indians? Can you guess that, guys? What it would be? SBI, Allahabad Bank, Punjab National Bank, Central Bank, what it could be? The answer is Punjab National Bank. It was established in Lahore in 1894 when the partition had not happened. Right, everything was like India. So PNB, established in Lahore in 1894, was the first bank purely managed by Indians. Apart from that, other banks which was established before PNB, they were not being purely managed by Indians. Next, which was the first Indian bank to open a branch outside India? Now, can you guess that? Will it be a public bank or a private bank to open branch outside India? First bank to open a branch outside India. Well, very interesting fact. The answer is Bank of India. Neither SBI, neither PNB. It's Bank of India. It opened its first foreign branch in London in 1946, even before we got the independence. So I don't think what could have been the idea, but I think a lot of Indians at that time were residing in England, right? So Bank of India might have thought of encashing upon that opportunity. Right. So let's do some more trivia questions. When was RBI established? Now we shall learn more about RBI in the coming part of this series, but I hope at least you know Reserve Bank of India is the regulator of banking system in India. When was it established? After independence or before independence? Can you guess that? Before independence in 1935. So it's a very old bank, and if you are aspiring to get into this bank, it means you are going into one of the topmost regulatory body of India. Largest bank in terms of assets or business, largest bank. Can you guess that as of now? Will it be ICICI Bank or will it be HDFC Bank? No, here the answer is our SBI, State Bank of India, right? It caters to a lot of people in the rural areas. That's why it's the largest bank. Though in urban cities, if you go and see, you might feel that HDFC or ICICI are very big banks, but SBI is one of the largest banks in India. In fact, is the largest bank in India in terms of assets or business, right? So I hope in case you didn't know about these facts, now after knowing about these facts, it will give you a lot of uh, satisfaction that you know these facts now, and you can ask your friends who are preparing for banking exams that do they know about these facts or not. Anyways, let's move ahead. So that was about some trivia questions. I hope you felt them interesting. Now coming to the business, what does banking means? We discussed about the basic function of the bank, right? But what does banking means? Who defines banking? The answer to that lies in that section 5B of the Banking Regulation Act 1949. This is the one which defines banking. So as per this section 5B, banking means accepting what? Deposits of money from the public. So banking means accepting what? Deposits of money from the public. And for what purpose? For the purpose of lending or investment, right? So that is, if bank is accepting money, right, as in deposits of money from public, and the purpose of accepting that money is to lend that or invest that, but that money must be repayable on demand. That is, if somebody who has deposited the money, if he asks for repayment, that is, if he asks that he wants to get his money back, then it must be repaid, right? So that is, it must be repaid or demand, or could have could be withdrawal by check, draft, or any other means. I hope this is clear now. What does banking means? First of all, it is the section 5B of the Banking Regulation Act which defines banking. In case you don't know about Banking Regulation Act, don't worry. We shall get into the details of that later in this series. So banking means accepting deposits of money from public. For what purpose? For the purpose of lending or investment, but that money is to be repayable if demanded back by the person who has deposited it, or he wants to withdraw it by check or draft. So I have explained it by breaking it, right? This is one line of definition, but I have broken it to explain you this in simple terms. I hope this is clear. So now we have understood the meaning of banking. Now, what does banking company means? So this is defined in section 5C of the Banking Regulation Act. Banking company means any company which transacts the business of banking. So we understood the meaning of banking in the previous slide. Now banking company means any company which transacts the business of banking as defined earlier. That would be called a banking company. It is defined in section 5C of the Banking Regulation Act. Right? Now, let's try to understand this through an example. Any company engaged in manufacture of goods, if accepts deposits from people to finance its business, then will it be a banking company? If any company is into manufacture of goods, but it is accepting deposits from people to finance its business, then will it be banking company? The answer is no. Why? Because it is accepting deposits to finance its business. It is not accepting deposits to further lend that money or further invest that money. And moreover, we also have to take into account what is the core business. The core business here is the manufacture of goods. It's not the accepting money and then further lending or investing it. Right? So here the answer is no. That should be clear to you. Right? So that was about the banking company. So you would have understood the meaning of banking and the banking company. Now, since we have got into the Banking Regulation Act, let's try to understand some more important sections of the Banking Regulation Act. Section 7 of the Banking Regulation Act says that no company other than banking company. So only company which is engaged in the banking business, apart from that no other company can use the name can use in its name words like bank, banker, or banking. So any company which is not a banking company, right, cannot use in its name the words like bank, banker, or banking. That is not allowed. And at the same time, any company which is in the business of banking, that is any banking company, right, shall always have these words in its name, right? That is a part of its name. If a company is a banking company, should have either of these word bank, banker, or banking. And you can see that if you see the names of the bank: ICICI Bank, Yes Bank, Allahabad Bank, HDFC Bank, State Bank of India, Central Bank of India, all these banks have the words bank in their name. So there are two things that you need to know. If the company is not a banking company, it cannot use these words in its name. And if the company is a banking company, it must have either of these words in its name. Right? So this is section 7 of the Banking Regulation Act. Please remember, it can be asked that which of these sections in the Banking Regulation Act defines this, right, or regulates this. So that should be clear to you. So what is the actual regulation, that should be clear. Along with that, the section number should also be clear. Now coming to the section 9 of the Banking Regulation Act. Section 9 of the Banking Regulation Act is with respect to immovable property. No banking company shall hold any immovable property. What is immovable property? Like for a house, for a building, a car. A car is a movable. Immovable is like no land, building, which is not movable. So no banking company shall hold any immovable property. Howsoever required, that whatever is the means of acquiring that, irrespective of that, no banking company shall hold any immovable property, right, for period exceeding 7 years. For period exceeding 7 years, except such as is required for its own use. So if banking company wants to have a building, right, wants to hold a building for more than 7 years, but it is not required for its own use, then that is not allowed. So any banking company shall not hold any immovable property for more than 7 years, except when it is using that property for its own use, right? But there is exception to that. Even if banking company is not using any movable property for its own new use but wants to hold it for more than 7 years, then with the approval of RBI, that limit of 7 years can be extended. Right? I hope it is clear. It's not something rocket science that I'm telling you, but this needs to be understood. Right? That what is the exact clause and what is the exception, because sometimes they can ask you question on the exception also. So this is with respect to section 9 of the Banking Regulation Act. Now, there is one more very interesting section, which is Section 10A of the Banking Regulation Act. Section 10A of the Banking Regulation Act actually says that not less than 51%, not less than 51% of the board of directors, right, that, or we can say that at least 51% of the board of directors should have knowledge in one of these areas. What are these areas? Accountancy, agriculture and rural economy, banking, corporation, economics, finance, law, small scale industries, right, or any other area which RBI thinks is useful for the banking company. So in nutshell, what this clause says, that the board of directors should be such that they should have knowledge of some areas which are useful to the bank. It should not be like, no, a person who is an expert in aviation is appointed as a board of director in a banking company, because then he does not have expertise for the bank. So therefore this clause, section 10A of the Banking Regulation Act, says that at least or minimum 51% of the board of directors of a banking company shall have expertise or knowledge in one of these areas, right? So that's it, guys. Next, we shall continue with the no upcoming sessions in this series. I don't want to give you a lot of information so that you're not able to absorb. So I want to keep these lectures very small. Now let's try to solve some homework questions which I'm giving you. And if you have understood this lecture, you should be able to answer them. And you can type your answers in the comment section of this video. Let us see who can answer all these questions correctly. The first question is, can a bank have a name, grow your funds? So we discussed that, the regulations regarding the name of the bank. So your question is, can grow your funds can be the name of the bank? Second question is, which is the largest bank in India? And the third question is bit analytical, which you need to think and answer, that why does not RBI have its own bank? Why does not RBI have its own bank? Why RBI is regulating other banks? Start your own bank. There is no need of regulation also, and everything is fine. And you can have a lot of business. RBI is a brand name. So why does not RBI have its own bank? Think about that. Answer that. Answer all these three questions in the comment section of this video. We would love to see your comments and see whether you have been able to understand what we have explained in this video or not. Thanks for now. Have a nice day. Bye bye.